Resilience is a word that's been bandied around a lot, but let's try to deconstruct it to make it a little bit more real and tangible, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I like to think about it as a resilient mind, M-I-N-D, okay? And M is about mindsets and motivations, right? And we'll come back to that, right? I is about how do I move from reacting impulsively to making an intentional response, right? So I think a little bit more before I react to what happens, right? N is nurturing. How do I nurture myself? How do I take care of myself? And how do I take care of others around me, right? And D is discipline execution, because whatever mindsets and motivations and thoughts that I might have, I've got to make sure I have a kind of an operating system to put it in and day out, right? And so when you come to mindsets and motivations, the first thing is today, all of us are wrestling with hyper uncertainty. We have no idea what's going to happen to our industry, to our economy, to our family lives, right? Our job security. And honestly, as leaders, you can't just give this certainty. Um, you can't kind of take it away from your employees, right? They are dealing with it, right? But while we might not be able to tell you what is going to happen, what we can keep overemphasizing and over communicating is how do we align the purpose of our organization with the personal purpose of each employee, right? Because that is where, like that's how you turn workplaces into joy places, right? Because you have that alignment, right?
Yeah.
And that's the first part that we can do as leaders. So for me, even if I cannot communicate certainty, I still need to over communicate, right? And I still need to share so that let's just make sure we define our core purpose. For example, right, if you're running a restaurant and you can't, your customers can't come to you, but if you say, look, our purpose is to make sure that people have nourishing food, maybe they can't come to a restaurant, but let's completely pivot and do food delivery, right? So really redefine food and how we're nourishing society. So that's mindsets and motivations, right? Intentional response is how do we move from reacting like the victim? You talk a lot about the victim mindset, Janet, right? Into one where we say, how do we apply more curiosity? And this is where there are a lot of tools and techniques. That's a whole multi-hour conversation on making sure that our team members are not misunderstanding each other, because that's what happens, especially when we're not face to face. It's so easy to misunderstand on text or even on Zoom calls. And so as a leader, when someone is frustrated, right, hearing them out and not just completely just judging and telling them what to do, but creating that safe space so that they can explore, okay, well, what does that mean? Why do you believe that? How would you validate your thought, right? Nurturing, there's so much we can do to create a nurturing environment. For example, right, one of the most biggest causes of stress right now with this remote working environment is managers expecting employees to respond immediately to text messages, right? Why are you not responding to my text message? Are you just lying on your couch watching Netflix, right? So here's the thing. Think about our brains, right? Actually cannot multitask. If you think you're multitasking, you're kidding yourself, because what you're doing is you're jumping from one task to the other, right? And so right now, for example, 47% of people watching this webinar right now are trying to multitask, right? They're kind of listening to Azran and Janet, but then they're checking their WhatsApp messages, their Facebook new feeds, and they're going to try to do a little bit more work on that spreadsheet or that Microsoft Word document. But actually, you're not doing all those things in parallel. You're jumping from one task to the other. And every time you jump, it's like the car having to go into a new gear. I have to where did I last live? I've got to reconnect, right? So I'm using more mental energy for that. So the more you jump, it's like trying to drive a car, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake. How do you think that's going to happen to your car engine, right? Your fuel efficiency versus driving more continuously, right? And so one way that we can be clear as managers is to say, okay, guys, we're going to communicate synchronously. Like for example, with my team, 9 to 9:15 in the morning and 5:45 to 6 p.m. in the evening. That's when we're going to do our 15 minutes check-ins and check-outs. During the rest of the day, we communicate on a collaboration tool, right? If something really urgent comes up, I will call, right? But I only expect replies at the start of the day and the end of the day. And by 6 p.m., we need to be super crystal clear. Unless something is urgent, we're going to do laptops down and let's go back to our normal lives, right? Because a lot of times, because people don't know, they actually are working a lot longer, right? But that's like burning candles on both ends, because your team's going to be burnt out, right? And you might say, look, we're under crisis right now. We got to work hard. Yeah, but this is not a crisis that's going to go away for 3 to 4 weeks. This is a crisis that may be multiple years, right? And so if you burn out your employees in 6 months, they're going to be so burnt out and exhausted, they don't have anything left to keep going for another 6 months after that.